That was probably one of the more dangerous days during my career. We got called out about noontime. They had a fellow wounded in the 2nd of the 12th Infantry Battalion, and who had sent 2 companies down a road to try to interdict a North Vietnamese unit that was headed for Saigon. And they had a couple of wounded. So I went out there and they couldn't secure the landing zone. And finally they called me and said, well, my medic tells me this guy's going to die unless you can pick him up. We'll do our best to suppress the enemy if you'll be willing to come in. I said, we're on the way. So we landed and started taking hits. 2 Viet Cong jumped up out of a foxhole or a spider hole about 100 yards from us and fired a rocket propelled grenade at us. It hit a tree limb in front of us and just broke our windshield. But we came out of there. Then about 7 o'clock that night, we got called back again. Very, very dangerous. Got shot up again. And then at midnight, another mission for the same unit. And then at 4 o'clock in the morning, went out and these 2 companies had consolidated and were about to get overrun. They were under heavy attack. So the battalion commander was flying in a command and control helicopter. And initially I asked him to shut off the flares that were being dropped so I could land. And at first he refused. And by that time I was a brash young major on my 2nd tour. So I said, you don't want me to get shot down landing or taking off. Turn out the flares and let me land. And then I'll call you on the ground and you can start the flares again. So he finally consented, and I turned all the lights off on the helicopter we went in, and I turned on my landing light when I got down to the bottom, and I could see a small clearing in the jungle, and I could see wounded laying all along a road. So I landed kind of in the middle of where all the wounded were, and he started the flares again, and we started taking hits. I could hear rounds hitting the tail boom in the back of the helicopter. And we finally got loaded. We picked up 8 wounded, and we started up. I asked him to shut the flares down so I could take off, and he refused. He said his units were under heavy attack. We took off, and just as I cleared the top of the tree line, there were just sheets of tracers coming up, hitting the bottom of the helicopter. A round came up through the left side here by my knee and hit the collective lever and ricocheted off and split my left thumb open, and that hurt like a son of a gun. And then I heard a scream behind me, and the medic told me that one of our patients had been hit in the back and it killed him. Then something hit me. A round came through the windshield down here where the windshield bolts in the frame, hit my flight helmet right between my eyes and came out behind my left ear here. And when it did, it brought a bunch of metal and plexiglass, went primarily into my left eye, cut my nose and chipped out a place up here and chipped out a place back here. And I threw the stick. It hit me hard enough. My head flew back and I hit the back of the seat. And that hurt like a son of a gun. But I threw the stick, and my co-pilot said I jammed the right pedal all the way to the floor, and I pulled the collective lever all the way up. So we rolled over like this, and I looked down again, and I looked at the artificial horizon and on the dashboard, and I could see we're in a descending right turn headed for the ground about 100 feet away. So I got the stick centered and centered the pedals and pulled in some power to start climbing again. I told my co-pilot I'd been hit, and he took over and flew us back to Cu Chi. But I couldn't see out of my left eye. Didn't know what had happened to me. All I knew was that something had hit me and I could feel something warm running down the left side of my face. And so for some reason I closed my left eye and I could still see the instrument panel clearly. But then when I switched and closed my right eye, I couldn't see, just a blur of lights. So that's what happened, all that metal and plexiglass. I had a piece of plexiglass about that long sticking right here in the corner of my eye, and a bunch of small pieces that they dug out over the next 4 or 5 days. This is the helmet I was wearing. The bullet came through the windshield down here, right at the right front, down about here, and I was sitting in this seat right here, and we were climbing out like this, and the bullet came into my helmet here and came out back here on this side, and it tore. This thing had padding in there to keep from sitting on your head. It was rubberized padding. And it sucked a bunch of it out this hole, and my guys thought it was my brain or part of my head that came out. But the bullet continued on through. It hit the roof of the helicopter up here, and there are little longerons, little braces that go over the top. And back here where the engine compartment is was the last one, and here's the bullet that went through there. It kept going through those metal longerons until it finally petered out when it hit the one back to back. And the maintenance unit, 20th maintenance unit that supported us there, dug it out of the helicopter and put it on this plaque to me and gave it to me.